Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Big episode today as we're getting ready for the preview of our national championship game coming up here on Monday night as the Buckeyes get ready to play Alabama. The biggest, in my opinion, the biggest named national championship that we've had since this playoff thing has began. To Blue Bloods, I mean, you look at their overall wins, their overall win percentage. I mean, these teams are top 5, top 10, and every major category, in the country, over their entire history. So big game. Excited. So what are you thinking, John? This is it, man. National championship time.
No, this is a big one for sure. Just going back on what you said about the Blue Bloods there, even going back to the BCS era, like this is probably the biggest marquee game as far as name brand. I mean, I guess you could say Alabama, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Would have been way up there. I was thinking Alabama, Texas.
You can say Texas, USC. Like if you go through some of the list of like probably those, I would say, I mean, Miami, Ohio State. So, I mean, Miami, I don't consider Miami a blue blood because they were only, I mean, when you think of blue blood, I mean, Ohio State's been a legitimate team since, I mean, they've had, even prior to the 1950s, they had a lot of positive history.
I mean, did Miami have a football team prior to 1980?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
But definitely since Woody took over, I mean, the Buckeyes have been a powerhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, and they haven't had many down years, same with Alabama. I mean, since Bear Bryant's been the head coach, I mean, they've had a couple of their stretches too, but I mean, what they've done in, the last 60, 70 years comparable to, same thing Ohio State's done. I mean, these are legitimate teams that have done it for a consistent period of time. Yeah. So they're blue bloods.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super excited for the game though. I love, that underdog feel. Just, keep doubting Ohio State. That's fine. That seems like what it was going into the Clemson game. I felt like Ohio State did everything imaginable to prove that, they could play with anybody in the country. And it just seems like that now, now they're a bigger underdog.
Yeah. So. We're getting at that even more that, they really have no chance and whatever. I mean, it's always whatever goes with this program. And like Herb Streak talked about it a little bit during the Clemson game. It's like whenever they're back to the wall as a program, that's when they win their title.
That's when it feels like they just respond the greatest is when that happens. So I'm good. We're getting into the game here in a little bit. So just get the personal stuff out of the way. Little man turns 1 tomorrow. So today is Saturday, the 9th. Tomorrow is his birthday. You don't need to send us anything. That's fine. And then we got that championship game on Monday. So yeah, I can't wait for his party. Browns are in the playoffs. We've said it before. I know this is Buckeyes. We are Browns fans. Not looking the most optimistic for them but hell, anything's possible. So I don't know. When you got Nick Chubb running the ball, assuming your line's healthy, I think they can do it. I think they can beat the Steelers. So hopefully it's a good Sunday night. And then that takes us into Monday for all day national title.
Yeah. I mean, if you want,
I took off Monday and Tuesday. I don't know about you, but
I just took off Tuesday. I'll work Monday. I gotta do something through the day on Monday or I'll be.
I'm going to watch the Sugar Bowl from 2014, 2015 about like, I don't know, what can I get? Probably like 4 in a day and 3.
It's crazy to think.
That's how early I get up.
After we beat, we'll get into this game here in a minute, but even after we beat Alabama in 2014, we were still the underdogs in that national championship game. And that was just, I don't know.
It was still a touchdown too.
And I always felt going into that game that whoever won Alabama, Ohio State was going to win the national title. Like I've always said, like right now, the 3 most satisfying wins I've had. And I mentioned this on Twitter the other day and somebody brought up the Oregon national championship and I loved that game. But my 3 most satisfying wins was the 0-2 beating Miami. That was just a great win.
Yeah.
2014 beating Alabama. And then right now, the Sugar Bowl from last week, it'll be interesting how I feel about that game after, after this game if we end up winning. But somebody brought up that 2014, and I'm like, I was so confident going into that game. I'm like, there was like the 2014, it's weird. Like the 2014 playing Alabama, like I felt like we could beat them, but there were so many unknowns because of Cardell, what could he do? I'm like, and I going into that game, I'm like, I felt we had the talent to beat them, but it just felt like eventually it was just, we were due to lose because everything was going our way going into after the Wisconsin game and making the playoff. That I'm just like, Alabama, he's gonna have a month to study for Cardell, and Nick Saban's just he's a smart coach. Whatever you think about Kirby Smart as a head coach, he's a smart defensive coordinator. I'm like, they're gonna have a month to prepare and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just didn't feel it. But once we beat them, I always knew whoever won that game was going to beat Oregon. I just felt like, everybody always gets, at least in that time period. I know Oregon's a little different now because Cristobal's, developed the team a little differently. They recruited small, fast guys, and Ohio State, Alabama recruited big, fast guys. And I'm like, they have the athletes that are just going to overwhelm these guys.
Right. Once it got to the point in the national title game, whoever won that Sugar Bowl, Alabama or Ohio State, asserted their dominance at the line of scrimmage and just punished those guys that they no longer wanted to engage with them, that game was over. So, and I don't think for either team it was going to necessarily take that long because they were very undersized on both sides of, both lines. Oregon was. So either Alabama and Ohio State, and you can say all you want about tempo, speed, whatever. Ohio State and Alabama, they recruit big, fast people.
Yeah.
And they have excellent strength and conditioning programs. Like those guys, I understand tempo can get the best of anybody, but those guys, they weren't going to get winded. And once they got the ball that they could control the clock and do what they wanted to do with it, Oregon was dead against either one of those teams. Yeah. But like I kind of agree with you as far as like satisfaction goes on that. Cause the one, 02 national title, that just stands out to me over all of them because you beat one of the greatest teams ever assembled. Ohio State in our lifetimes, they never won a national title. They've never played for a national title in our lifetime. So that was just something amazing to see. There was no way that they were ever going to win that game. And again, they pretty much dominated the line of scrimmage in that game. So that was 14. And I would say 14 would be number 2 or 15 Sugar Bowl, however you want to word that, just because, we did have a one-off win against Arkansas in 2010 that got vacated, but it was kind of like, we still like 2013, we lost to Clemson in the Orange Bowl. So we were still having trouble with Southern teams in bowl games, and it still wasn't quite sure, even though, we won that Rose Bowl and that Sugar Bowl in 10 and 11 or 9 and 10. And then I would say Clemson after that, just because we had never beat them and just beat the crap out. So that was great.
Now, going off the previous 2 national champions, I don't think so. The 2014, after we ended up winning,
that would be 4th. 2014 would be right behind that Clemson win.
After 2014, I have like a weird way of kind of thinking about 2014 that going into the Alabama game, I didn't think, like I said, I think Ohio State could have beat them, but I wasn't thinking of Ohio State as a team of destiny. They ended up beating Alabama, and then I thought they would win the national title. So after the fact, then like maybe they're kind of team of destiny. Going into the Miami game in 02, I actually had more confidence of us beating Miami. Like I just, everybody was talking down about Ohio State, and I kind of just had this feeling. I'm like, especially how the year went. Like the 2014 game, after you lost to Virginia Tech, it was pretty dominant. The only reason why there was any hesitation was after, JT gets injured. That how can Cardell do? 2002,
Am I wrong though? Didn't we kind of struggle against like Minnesota and Indiana that year?
We struggled for like a quarter. And then maybe Minnesota came back a little bit, but remember that was the negative whatever game, and it's the outdoor stadium, and JT has that.
JT has the slowest 80-yard touchdown run in the history.
Yeah, whatever it was. I thought it was 90 yards, but regardless. But Indiana, they got a couple first half touchdowns. So we still beat them by I think like 3 or 4 touchdowns.
I can't really remember. I know is one of those games. Is that the Jalen Marshall punt return game?
Yeah.
Or is that Minnesota? Or is that when he struggles? I don't know. One of them, I know one of them, he has like 3 touchdowns, and then the other one he does terrible in.
Yeah. But so it's just, but it was just different. 2002 I mean, it's coming down the stretch. I mean, you had to win overtime games. You had the Holy Buckeye. I mean, there was everything that, I mean, you don't score an offensive touchdown against Penn State. You know, Gamble has to have the interception return for a touchdown to win that game. There's just so much coming down the stretch in that season. But at the way they won every game and then nobody was giving them a chance, I'm like, I don't know. They just feel like they're the team of destiny. And to take that now into this year, I'm like, I've actually kind of felt like going into this playoffs that Ohio State is the team of destiny, that just everything that this season has done to them. They've had so many obstacles in their way, and everybody's like, oh, they've had, when you look at the national picture of them looking back at it, like Ohio State's had such an easy road and all that stuff. And like, I don't know, that's like, and maybe there could be a biases in theirs, but it also could be that I just understand Ohio State a lot better. There's been a lot of obstacles thrown at this team because it's nothing to do with football.
Ohio State has probably by far, I mean, outside of, you know, like people actually like passing away, they probably had like probably one of the most difficult, most emotional football seasons there are. Yeah. And I just, that kind of, I mean, I'm with you on the team of destiny. That kind of just scares me at some points too, that the team might, like after that Clemson win, they just are emotionally spent. And that was like the end goal. But I know how Ohio State is. I know how these guys are. They're going to get up, and they're going to get up big time for this national title.
Yeah. And that's how I feel. They're going to be ready for it. I mean, again, it seems like we're going to have some COVID issues going into this game. I mean, there's some rumors out there that it's, defensive linemen. But there's rumors now on both sides of it, who's out, who's not out. And so, I mean, we're not going to speculate. I think, if people want to look up on Twitter, there's plenty of things on the pay sites, Bucknuts, the rivals on Buckeye Grove and on
Buckeye
Scoop and Scoop. I mean, any of the 3 sites plus Letterman Row, plenty of information on all those sites about who might be out, who might not be out from, people that are much closer to the team and have a lot more insider sources than we do. We just follow around on Twitter like everybody else. So I'm not going to speculate on it. We've had plenty of people out now for the last 3 weeks. When you think of all the way back to Michigan State, for the last 3 games. So, I mean,
and I'm sorry to go ahead, finish.
I'm just like, this is no different now. And like, this is coming into my thought process that this is the team of destiny. And then, they've done this now for the last how many weeks, last how many games.
I mean, but since Michigan State, we've seen this how many times now. And I just like, my point, what I want to bring up is though, who struggled since this has had to happen? Which second or third teamer has struggled when the spotlight's been on them? I mean, the only one I can think of, and I know he's had a rough year, and I'm not, trying to pick on him, was Harry Miller getting moved over to center, that he had troubles with his snap.
Yeah, that's
the only one I can even think of that had any sort of struggle. And I know your competition's not Alabama, but Clemson's no slouch. I mean, I think they were vastly, overrated. I think the ACC as a whole was overrated this year. I mean, you and I saw things throughout the year that we thought, Clemson was very beatable, and it showed, but that's, like, who can you think of that when they got thrown in there that they've really struggled? I mean, you had a whole new offensive line for the most part against Michigan State.
And they looked great.
They looked amazing.
Outside of Miller.
Outside of the snaps, they looked amazing in that game. And I know Michigan State's not Alabama, but still, I mean, you have very limited to no errors. I mean, even against bad competition, you would think that would show.
And even in that situation, Harry Miller's snaps got better as the game went on.
Absolutely.
And it's once his snaps started getting better, he got better with blocking because, he was then not
because he wasn't thinking about the snaps.
Yeah. So like they just dominated Michigan State, at the line of scrimmage. And, Northwestern, they dominated them in run blocking. I mean, they were.
So maybe there's year one, and that was mostly on Justin about just not really trusting his other receivers in that game.
Yeah. And like I said, I think a lot of that, and after the one interception, when it is obviously, even though it goes against Justin Fields, but it's obviously Williams' fault because he takes the wrong route.
Well, the first actual interception in that game, that's a hell of a play for that one-handed interception in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin could have definitely got the ball a little bit more to, was it Garrett Wilson?
I believe so.
He could have probably done a better job trying to get it to his outside shoulder, but that was an incredible play for that interception.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with you there. Now, what I told, like, I think I put this, I either put on Twitter or one of the pay sites that, I'm on, Buckeye Scoop. I just said, everybody just relax. Just, I understand it's scary. We're not going to say any names, but the news that we've heard is scary. But you got to remember, defensive line. These guys aren't just kids coming off the street.
Yeah.
One, they're highly rated kids. And a lot of these guys that are going to get thrown into action, they have spent years with the best defensive line coach, arguably ever. And this team as a whole have been in the strength and conditioning program of the best coach in the business. Like, be confident. There is no reason. I understand numbers. I understand you don't want your second stringers, starting in place of your starters, but you should not be scared going into this game.
No, there's a lot of second teamers on this team that would start and, start against, possibly start on, maybe not Alabama, but, Alabama has second teamers that could start on a lot of programs in the country, including the SEC. There's a lot of our second teamers right now that would be starters on a lot of the SEC teams.
I mean,
that Alabama plays against, and you might probably be better than some of the kids that they have to play against Alabama. So,
and I know it's the flip side going on the offensive, but we saw a true freshman in the Sugar Bowl that probably looks like that he would start for any other team in the country. That maybe Ohio State, should have given him some looks at guard during the season.
Yeah. So, and Matt Jones has played great. I mean, DeJuan Jones has played when he's had to play great.
He played great against Michigan State. Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about it. I think at this point they are fine because they have people behind them. They have, if it is the defensive line, you got the best D-line coach in the country. And like you said, they've been in the best strength and conditioning program in the country. I mean, and that's not just Buckeye fans. I mean, go read articles of Mickey Mariotti. I mean, what some of those national articles say about him.
Oh, he changed the game too. I mean, that's like everyone wants to mimic him now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And like I said, they haven't struggled, and you're getting guys back too. That's the whole thing about this COVID thing is, some guys are going out now, but you're getting guys back also. So you're getting other guys that have played meaningful snaps that are going to be back in this game.
Yeah. So let's get into Alabama. So, and the one thing I've also said is that when I kind of looked back at like different times when, Ohio State's backs have been against the wall, but they've won national titles, in 2014, they had to play the 3 Heisman finalists, win the national title.
Absolutely.
And they're playing the top 4 Heisman finalists, for this national title. So like, I think that they, I don't know, something I go with stuff like that. I believe in things like that. I'm okay with it. I think that the thing about Alabama is they have an unbelievable offense. We don't know what's going to happen with Waddle. Is Waddle back? And if he is back, how healthy is he really? Does it really matter? I mean, because you got to put somebody on him until you realize that if he can play or not. And, I mean, if he gets lined up out there, I mean, you think about it. If Chris Olave got hurt early in the season, then just randomly came back for this game, Alabama would have to put somebody legit on Chris Olave until they realize if he really can play or not, because you can't take that chance that you throw out just a safety on Chris Olave and think that,
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you got to see is he capable of burning your secondary deep, because that's Jalen Waddle does that better than anybody.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he can do it, then, Sean Wade or Seven Banks has to be on him. I mean, that's just what it is. And then the other one has to be on David or,
Devontae Smith.
That's right. Sean Wade, he called him out.
I mean, he said, who I want to cover.
Yeah. And
he wants the best competition.
And that's what you expect. I mean, so Sean needs to play up on him, though. You gotta challenge him.
He didn't say anything like, I think I'm going to win that matchup.
No.
That guy's a scrub, anything like that. I mean, he said he gave him all the praise in the world for being a great receiver. He said he's up for the challenge, that he wants to go up against him.
And just play up on him. That's what I want to see. I want to see if Devontae Smith can beat you. Let's let him beat you playing press on him, and let's see how good he is. And, I don't want to play off of him. I don't want to play scared that you're letting these guys, dictate, because that's when you think about Alabama's offense, that's what a lot of their offense is built on. It's short passes, and they let their receivers, do their thing. So like,
right,
you got to take that away from them to get your line. Then maybe Mac Jones maybe makes a couple mistakes because he's not used to maybe having to hold the ball for a little longer than expected. So I think that's the big thing with Kerry Combs. I think he needs to come in with the game plan is let's press these guys. Let's let that be the initial game plan and see if we can get Alabama kind of outside their routines.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think Mac Jones, he's had an excellent year. I can't take anything away from the guy. He's done very well in their would you call it a West Coast offense?
I mean, it's
RPO based.
I mean, it's definitely a Sarkisian offense, which is, I mean, you think about when he was at USC, it was very similar to a lot of, same at Washington. It's, it's getting the ball out quickly. You basically, in a lot of those offenses, it's, you're doing a lot of horizontal stuff instead of maybe going vertical. And you're trying to get your ball into your playmakers' hands, and then you let your playmakers kind of, make the plays. Then after that, I mean, it's not what you think of the old school West Coast offense that Bill Walsh ran, but it's definitely derived from a lot of those concepts.
So I've seen Mac Jones play, and he's done well. I mean, I didn't watch Alabama that much this year as opposed to Clemson. I watched a lot of Clemson. Every week I watched the Clemson game. Alabama they crushed everybody, and they usually, from the start of the game they did. So their games weren't that interesting. Whereas Clemson, games were close after the first quarter. You saw a lot of flaws in their game, and it was just easier and more interesting to study. Alabama, though, what I did see, I watched a little bit of the SEC championship game.
And I watched the entire second half of the Ole Miss game. I did watch a lot of the SEC championship game.
I watched a lot of the Ole Miss game in the second half. They couldn't stop the run for anything. I mean, that offense was just, they were getting yards at will, and they were scoring at will. What they have, like 48 points?
Mm-hmm.
Like Ole Miss had no issues, scoring on them whatsoever. Florida, they beat them vertically, and over the middle. So I think that's good signs. That going back to the offense though, Mac Jones is not he's kind of flat-footed in the pocket. Like I don't think he recognizes pressure very well. He's very quick getting the ball out. So if you can disguise some things, I think if you can turn this game into making Harris run or jamming those receivers initially, that the quick throw isn't there to make him wait a second, I think you can get to him and cause some problems. Like I see a lot of, and I hate like comparing things to the pros. I think a lot of how the Giants figured out Tom Brady and the Patriots, those Super Bowls way back when, I think that's something that's in play here against these guys. If you can, jam those guys, make them wait a second, maybe make them hand the ball off to Najee, take away the pass part of that RPO though. I think you can get to these guys and you can get a couple stops.
Yeah.
And that's what this game is going to take. It's just going to you got to make them punt the ball.
Yeah.
Make them turn it over, punt the ball, whatever it is. You got to get stops in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with that. I think that the thing is just you pressure them, you get them, you press their receivers, and then you come downhill hard with the linebackers on Najee, and that way, whether it's in a pass play or whether it's, in a run play, if you come down hard on him, then maybe you knock him off a little bit on not letting him get easily out of the pocket if he's going to go out in a route.
Yeah.
And then you come down hard on him when he gets the ball, because, that's what you got to do. And, and Najee Harris is, if not the best running back in the country. I mean, he's a Heisman finalist. He's probably is the best running back in the country.
Well, and to go back to our Clemson preview, I said, out of the 4 teams, I know they all had good running backs, but if I had to pick one from any of them to be my starting running back, it would be Najee Harris.
No.
Now, reviewing some of, his film, he's not as hard of a runner as I thought he was. He's more of he's a really big finesse running back, which is kind of weird to say. Like the guy is 6'1", 230, something like that. He's very patient, though. He does not just run through people. He's very patient. He finds his lanes. He's good. If he can get outside, if he can get past your first line, watch out. So defensive line definitely has to make it hard for him. And then those linebackers have to be so sound. They have to plug those gaps.
Yeah.
He is so good being patient and finding the gaps and just turning 3 yards into 6 yards. Or 20 yards,
Exactly. And, Alabama's offensive line is better than Clemson's offensive line. So
very much so.
They're going to be
a lot better.
You're not going to bully them around like, you did against Clemson, but there's still opportunities there. Yeah. And, this is going to be the best defensive line. I mean, I haven't watched all the SECs, but I haven't been that impressed with the SEC this year as I've been maybe in years past. I think that they're all across the board. I didn't think Auburn's defensive line is as good as they've been in the past. I didn't think LSU's defensive line's been as good as they've been in the past.
Well, Georgia's still good.
Georgia's good.
And Georgia handled them for almost a half, and then you got a quarterback, Stetson Bennett, that he couldn't keep up, on his end of the deal. So Georgia, if they had a better quarterback, they would have won that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably easily. I mean, I know they end up losing by like 2 scores. So I guess that's hard to say because Alabama is built to be explosive. So maybe they don't win the game, but Georgia ran decently on them and Georgia was stopping them. Georgia could have beat them if they had a better quarterback.
Yeah. Like the 3 games I really look at against Alabama in the SEC is that Ole Miss ran it right down their throat for that game.
Yeah, they threw it all over them too.
And Ohio State's got a lot of abilities there that could be similar to that. Florida, Alabama had a lot of issues with Florida when Florida started coming back in that game, defending against Florida's passing attack. Well, Ohio State's got receivers. Ohio State's got a quarterback that can get it to their receivers. So there's a lot of beneficial things there that Ohio State can score when you look at those 2 games. And then when you throw in Georgia, how early in that game, if Kirby Smart was a better offensive minded coach or had, didn't hire Monken as his freaking offensive coordinator. Actually brought in a real offensive coordinator. I'm sorry, he was with the Browns, so I don't have a lot of. And I know that wasn't all just on him. Some of it was on Freddie too last year. But
there was a lot on Freddie.
if you watched the Browns offense last year, you would get where I'm coming at with that. That there's just I don't like him for some obvious reasons, but that. They just have such an unimaginative offense that once Alabama really started getting into that game, then it's just like, we just got to stop them from running the ball.
Right.
And then, it's a lot easier when teams are one dimensional. I don't care how good you are. You could be the best running team in the country, but unless you run the triple option that a team doesn't see every week.
Right. And then you can just steal time and possessions from the game.
Yeah. If you can't throw the ball in this world of football, even if you are a primarily running team, you still have to throw the ball because you can't let them load the box.
Right. You can't be one dimensional. You can't let them just know that they only have to stop one facet of your game.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing is when I see those 3 games, there's a lot there that I see with Ohio State. I've been like, man, Ohio State can score on these guys. We're not one dimensional like Clemson or not Georgia. We have running abilities that Ole Miss and Georgia both showed that they could beat Alabama on. And then we have passing abilities that Ole Miss and Florida showed that you could really take these guys. I mean, there's things there that Alabama's defense could get beat.
And I know Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert probably aren't Kyle Pitts, but Jeremy Ruckert's a hell of a pass catching tight end. Like he is a legit receiving threat. And I think people overlook that sometimes because he plays for Ohio State. Like that's not what Ohio State does. Like they make these guys blockers. He'll get drafted probably in 3rd round and he'll have a long NFL career because he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the game when he gets there. Or at least he's going to be a very good blocker. And to go along with, his skill set that he had coming in, like he's going to, Jeremy Ruckert probably will be one of the most successful Ohio State tight ends to ever go to the NFL.
Yeah.
But that's where they Florida, they killed them with Pitts over the middle. And I don't Patrick Surtain. He is a really good cornerback. He kind of looks like those old Alabama cornerbacks. He's a really big guy. And I saw in that Florida games, guys, they were able to get him kind of turned around and they ran by him.
Yeah. And, a couple things now that Nick Saban has to think about Ohio State that he didn't have to think about Ohio State from, 4 weeks ago prior to the Northwestern game is that Well, now we've seen tight ends play for Ohio State. Last week they used the tight ends, and now that's a threat. And now you have a running game, and that's a threat too. And Trey Sermon has looked like a man on a mission. The offensive line have looked like men on big missions, and they're just playing physical, nasty football. And Trey Sermon is running really, really good. He's being patient when he needs to be patient, and he's being fast and decisive when he needs to be fast and decisive and go through the hole. When the hole opens up, like that first touchdown against Clemson, I mean, he goes right through it when he, it's there. I'm going to go for it. But when he needs to be patient, wait for a block, he's showing that too. And
Trey Sermon in the first 2 weeks of the season looked like a strong gust of wind could take him down.
Yeah.
Trey Sermon is running with such ferocity right now. I mean, the guy, he's using everything to get extra yards. I mean, he's stiff arming. When he's going down, he's using his hand on the ground to propel him forward. Like he's running as hard as any running back I've ever seen in these last 2 games. Like something just lit a fire under him. And I think he had it anyways. I know he had the skill coming in. He was just very tentative. He was coming off of an injury. He was in a new system. Maybe he fell. I don't, maybe it was something about the competition that got him at first. I'm not sure what it was, but that guy has just been on a different level these last couple games. And I don't see that going anywhere because he has all the confidence now. And they have all the confidence in him. Like he's the man. And I think this is the offense he was always meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And Oklahoma, I mean, that's nothing against Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a great offense, but we know what Oklahoma does, at least what they did for years, is they throw all over everybody.
Yeah. Besides the one period of time when they had, AP where, I mean, even when they had P. Ryan and Mixon, I mean, they didn't run it enough with those guys, and they should.
They didn't. Yeah, because those guys were studs too.
Yeah,
and I mean, they run it enough that they win a lot of games. Like I dog on Oklahoma all the time because they lose big games, but Oklahoma is legitimately one of the top 5 teams in the country, and they could be very balanced if they wanted to be.
Yeah, they
got all the tools. I mean, they got a huge offensive line all the time, great quarterbacks, great receivers, and usually really good running backs. Yeah. But they have a different philosophy.
I think it's still, even, with Day, I mean, even with this year, I mean, I think the Ohio State mindset is still, you want to run the ball first, and then you want to be balanced with it. And, you want to have receivers that can take the tops off defenses. Well, we have that. And now Trey Sermon's really showing that in this offense with this offensive line that, he could be the primary focus of this team. And you got to remember the biggest problem Alabama had in 2014. The reason why, when you think about how big Zeke's game was, and, a lot of that is on Zeke. I mean, Zeke had a great game. I mean, he was focused. He ran with purpose, and he ran over them, and the offensive line was just, they were tears. They were started really pushing the Alabama defense line around. But Nick Saban, he respected Cardell's arm so much and he respected Devin Smith's ability to take the top off the defense and Michael Thomas is also a great receiver, but that wasn't his style. He wasn't the go down the field receiver. And even Jalen Marshall up to that game wasn't, but they started using Jalen Marshall deeper down the field against the safeties. And then you had Devin Smith. And so he kept his safeties back in that whole game. And Zeke, when you can't do that against running backs like that. Well, that could be Trey Sermon in this game, and he's showing that ability to be that. And now Ohio State has 3 receivers that could really take the top off the defense. And, Surtain is a great corner, and he's probably going to be on Olave, but how are these safeties going to do against Garrett Wilson? Right. And how are they, how's the other corner going to do against, Williams, or, if Jackson's in the game or whoever. And, there's guys in this offense that could really pressure them that they're going to have to keep safeties back. And that's going to be where the interesting parts of this is.
Well, I mean, I know Jordan Battle's great. I mean, that's Ohio State wanted him. He was coming to Ohio State until Urban left. But I don't know. Like, how I feel about like tight ends or slot receivers against safeties, especially really, really good ones. Like, I don't know. I'll give Garrett Wilson the edge against Jordan Battle if they end up getting lined up against each other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how all that things. I think Ohio State has a lot on offense that can really match Alabama. And that's the thing in this is it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we said against Clemson. You got to survive Alabama's offensive barrage. And if you can survive that, there's weaknesses in Alabama's defense that Ohio State could win this game to a point that easier than a lot of people think that they can. And I'm not saying easy, like a blowout easy, but easier that, Ohio State could control this game.
Right.
And, they could actually be the one team that's in front of the scoreboard, and Alabama could be the one that's chasing the points. And
you turn Alabama to where they got to continuously throw the ball downfield, and that you take Najee Harris out of the game because you go up on them by too many scores that, they're not comfortable anymore. I don't care how good they are throwing the ball. If you make them one dimensional, I think that's game over.
Yeah. So we definitely now, the aspect of our offense being a high capacity offense is going to be Justin Fields. And, what is his health? And, he took a big shot in the Clemson game, how is his ribs? And that's going to be come down to it. And
yeah, well, I think even more what I've been hearing, it's more so like lower back hip is what it was. That wasn't a rib injury.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. I've heard both. And he took a shot.
And that could go all the way up. That could go up to the ribs. You don't know. That was a hit. Man.
Yeah,
that was.
And we're not getting to that hit. Whether I don't care which way on the side of the hit you think, if it was a good hit or bad hit. It is still one hell of a shot he took.
I kind of defended it because I'm against targeting, but rewatching that, he lowered his head. That's you can't do it. So that's what the rule is. I don't care, if the guy's on his knees or not. That's kind of where I was like, he's on his knees. Like, what the hell can he do? He's not launching himself, but he lowered his head. So it was the right call. I think Justin's going to be fine. I think Justin's a man possessed going into these. I think he has all the tools that you can imagine. The guy is highly rated, and he has played second fiddle time and time and time again during his career. Jake Fromm's in front of him. He transfers. All people say is he can't beat out Jake Fromm. He had to, run away from the SEC, run away from competition. Trevor Lawrence beats him last year. Everyone, Trevor's beating him at everything, even though I'm pretty sure is it the Elite 11? I think Justin Fields beat him in the finals.
Yeah.
Of that. But going back on topic, he's heard that, he didn't win the Heisman, which he didn't deserve over Joe Burrow, but you can't beat Trevor. He throws interceptions, whenever a tough defense plays him, he gets rattled. He throws interceptions. He can't, he's not elite. He's not going to be, his draft stock's falling. Going up against Alabama now, he's hurt. And again, he got, in my opinion, got disrespected in the Heisman this year, but it is what it is. You didn't play as many games, so 2 bad outings, that'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with all that said and done, Justin Fields is going to come out a man possessed. I don't think anything in this world can stop him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I think he's healthier than a lot of people said. He even said he's like, I felt a little. He felt better the day after than he thought he was going to feel, and
then he did say he felt worse 3 days after than he thought he was going to feel. Also,
yeah. Well, it is what it is. He took a big shot, and and I'm sure there's going to be some juice in him when both his adrenaline juice and whatever he gets filled up with from the team doctors.
They'll give him something that he's feeling good before that game.
But
absolutely,
those are legal things. They're allowed doing that stuff, and so they'll get him ready to play. And he showed, was it 3 touchdowns after that hit or 4 touchdowns? He showed after that he could still throw the ball.
I think it's tied at 14, so it's 4 touchdowns.
Okay, so I couldn't remember if they were up 21.
Or maybe, hold on, he throws 6.
Yeah.
So if it's 21, because Sermon has a rush, so I think it's 4.
Okay.
Because he has 1 to Rucker.
I know he has the one to Olave because that's his first.
Oh, yeah, Olave, Rucker, because Rucker extended the half, that beautiful throw right over the middle.
And then he has 2 in the.
Then he has the 2 long ones.
Yeah,
in the second half that he shows he could throw 50 and 60 yards. So that must have been after they gave him the shot. Was at the halftime.
Yeah, the touchdown pass to Olave, the one when he comes right back in, after the play, that one looked. Olave makes a great play. I mean,
he turned that corner around.
Yes, and but it was kind of a duck throw.
Yeah, but it was a great. I mean, at least they had practiced it so well that they had the trust there that that lame duck that he threw.
Yeah,
that was fine because that was not a tight spiral, but Olave got that guy turned around and that ball was right there.
But the second touchdown, the 1-2 Rucker,
that was beautiful.
That was a nice touch, and he put everything into that to make that throw. And I mean, and that would have been before any shots he took at halftime. So, I don't know. Then it seemed like his adrenaline was starting to take over. So again, he'll be fine in this game. I mean, I don't know how mobile he'll be, but you know what? At the end of the day, he didn't need to be as mobile as a lot of people thought he needed to be against Clemson. I mean, he beat Clemson with his arm. I mean, he had some good runs early in that game, but he beat Clemson with his arm.
You want to know what mindset I really think Justin Fields is going to have going in this game? I think if you go back in time and you think to the 2005 season, 2006 national title game, if Justin Fields has the ball last with the chance to win the game, I think he's Vince Young. I don't think there's any way he's losing this game.
I could agree with that. I mean, I think
I guess I gave away my pick right there, but yeah, I just think he's going to come out just hair on fire, and he's going to replicate what he did in that last game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it'll be 6 touchdowns because that's a lot, but I think he's going to have a really big game.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think he will have a big game. I mean, I like Justin. I think Justin's a gamer, and he's proven that now several times that it's hard to put his back against the wall.
Yeah.
And
I don't get where this mindset. I guess when you look at it just at one game at a time, he struggled against Indiana. Yeah, he did struggle in a half against Indiana, or he struggled against Northwestern. Fine, but no one in his career has made him do that. You're looking at one thing and you're just magnifying it or amplifying it and thinking that it's some issue. We've watched Justin Fields for 2 years absolutely torch teams. We've watched him take huge hits, get knocked out of games, come right back.
Yeah,
Justin's a gamer, and you're gonna he's gonna do fine. The guy can take pain.
And like I said, maybe he's not as mobile as he's normally in the thing, but you know what? He wasn't as mobile against, Clemson last year. And the reason, I mean, and everybody says, well, it was that people still bring up that's the reason why they lost. It's been it's, they could have easily won that game. And it wasn't because his knee was banged up the reason why they lost. I mean, sure, the way the game ended up going, it could have helped. And if the game against Alabama, if it gets that way where, maybe when we're not scoring touchdowns, when we're only scoring field goals, then maybe we would need Justin to run a little bit more. But, against Clemson, we started scoring touchdowns and this year. And, at the end of the day, he beat Clemson with his arm.
Yeah, he didn't need to beat him with his legs.
And you beat Clemson by having good running out of Trey Sermon. And, and this offensive line, I don't know if, we talk about how the offensive line did against pass block or run blocking against Clemson. Has anybody watched some of the film where you see there's literally 8 yards of just pure pocket around Justin Fields at different times.
And I know they're not as young. I'm not sure Alabama's defensive line pressures as much or as good as Clemson's defensive line.
Yeah. And I don't even know if they can. I don't know what kind of blitzes he's going to be able to bring, because
he's not going to be like Venables, because he doesn't think that he needs to do that stuff to, gain an advantage, that his guys are bigger and faster than your guys. So he's going to play you straight up.
And he's going to have to keep, like we said earlier, he's going to have to keep his safety specs. He's going to have to respect the receivers enough that he can put a bunch of guys out there. And knowing Ohio State, if you start blitzing Ohio State, Ryan Day will adjust to that. And they will start torching Alabama with different routes, and I'm not worried about Ryan Day anymore he's not being inexperienced. He's been now in 2 playoffs. He's, righted his wrongs last week against Clemson. He called the best game he's called all year. And last week,
he showed I think he's saving some of this stuff because I think he knew that he could get here. So I think he saved some stuff to put in the playbook till the very end.
Yeah.
So that's huge. He has all the tools around him. You saw against Clemson, you can use all of them. You can use the tight ends. You can use, the deep passes. They're there. Trey Sermon, again, running like crazy. And Yeah, Ryan Day. I mean, like I said, we talked about this on the last one. I really think that Northwestern game was a blessing in disguise. That was really the first time, and I know Clemson won last year. To me, that was the first time that Ryan Day's offense was punched in the mouth and it couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I got to figure something out. And not that Ryan Day runs the ball, but he's never had to like go off. I don't know if he's ever really had to go off his game plan mid game and have to scheme up something different. Like, okay, well, this isn't working. But this is. So let's do this the rest of the game. And they ran it, and they ran it down Northwestern's throat. And you can say all you want that Ohio State barely beat Northwestern. I don't remember last time that I saw a team, outscore someone else, 16-0.5, beat them by 2 scores, and they barely beat them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, now going off biggest concern. So Fields' health is definitely right there with me. I still think he's a gamer and all that stuff. My biggest concern is probably still in the secondary.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason why is the secondary has proven a lot to me, and I'm not going to beat up the secondary. I still see people beating up on the secondary. Secondary has proven a lot to me, everything. The only difference in this game is Alabama's got a few more receivers than Clemson did. We talked about before the Clemson game. The Clemson guy, they just didn't have the outside receivers. I mean, and that Powell's not that bad. He made some good plays, and their other guy made a couple plays, but they weren't the Ross and T. Higgins.
Right.
So, when
Amari Rodgers is your third option instead of your first option, a lot more dangerous.
Yeah. Michi, Smith, and then, God, if Waddle's back now, this is a team that could pressure the secondary. So
Michi's okay. Yeah, Michi's good. I mean, he's not on the level of Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, but as a third receiver, he could be.
Yeah,
he's legit, and they will do more than Clemson was able to do against the secondary. So I think the best way to take that down is, like we said early in the show, is just come up, press them as much as on the outside as possible, and then build a defense that can handle the middle of the field. And I think they did that against Clemson.
Yeah.
And I think they could do that here. And I'm not saying Devontae Smith's not going to score. I think he will score. I think he'll have a pretty good game.
I can't imagine he's not going to have a really big game. I mean,
but that doesn't mean that you can't beat him. You just gotta stop him a few times, and you gotta be able to score with him.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, I mean, where are we about at with the show?
50 minutes.
Okay. So let's get into just our thoughts on score. So,
you want to do like our, who needs our 3 things, who needs games?
Let's just pick one guy on each side of the ball.
Okay.
Who needs who would you say on offense? If you had to pick one guy, and then that's got to be the guy. And again, let's take Justin out of it. I mean, we know Justin needs to be the guy. If Justin's not what Justin is, then, this is going to be a very big uphill battle. But who on that offense, any position?
I feel like I've only picked 2 guys all year. One was like every week, and then the other one was the last game. So I'm going to keep with the hot hand. I think Josh Myers is still my guy that, he has to dominate the middle of that field, dominate line of scrimmage, know your calls, pick up your blitzes, be the quarterback of that line. And I think he did a fabulous job against Clemson, just magnificent. And I think he could do it again. So that's my guy, Josh Myers. Play the game of your life. Go. I don't want to see you go, but on January 12th, be able to say that I'm going to the NFL because I dominated Alabama. I'm going to be a high draft pick now.
The guy I'm going with, and he's gotten lost a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Now, I think Sermon needs to have a big game. I think Chris Olave is going to have, Surtain on him. He needs to have a big game when he gets his opportunities. I think the difference maker is going to be Garrett Wilson. I think
that was my other one. Yeah.
I think Garrett Wilson is going to torch these safeties. He's going to be hard as hell to cover. And I think that you haven't really heard his name as much the last couple of weeks. He didn't have the biggest game in the world against Northwestern. I mean, when you think about, he had a couple good catches. He had a big catch that would have been a touchdown if Fields would have let him more, in that first half. But you think of Olave, and you think of then Williams. Juice had the big touchdown pass. That you think of those guys against Clemson. So I think Garrett Wilson, he's going to be the man. He's going to have a big game.
I like Garrett Wilson because, like we said, I think, these guys can be beat at different places. I would take him over Battle. I know that he's a hell of a safety, but I'd still take Garrett Wilson. Ryan Day has a knack when he goes up against real physical big cornerbacks that his slot receiver has pretty decent outings. And Dylan Moses is not good in coverage. So I know he's a good, linebacker, but he is not good in coverage.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think Garrett Wilson could eat this team alive.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could have easily over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, because I think this is they're going to run things because this is a difference. They're running less zone than Clemson does. And I think Garrett Wilson is going to get matched up a lot on linebackers trying to cover him man to man and safeties trying to cover him man to man. And that ain't going to work.
No, it's not. No, I agree with that completely.
And the nickelback, I mean, I don't know who their nickelback is, but he's not good enough to be the starter. So I don't know if that's going to work neither. So
just throwing insults. Good thing I don't think Nick Saban's listening to this yet. So
defensive. Who's your defensive guy? Who do you think?
I mean, it comes down to 4 guys, but if I got to pick one, I'm going to say Pete Warner. I mean, I would say the entire linebacker core, but Justin Hilliard, it's hard for me to say just because you still don't know what his role is in this game, even though I think he's earned to start and you use Browning as an edge rusher. But Pete Warner, I think he, as a complete player, he is their best linebacker. He's the best against the run. He's the best against the pass. And that's going to be the game. Be sound in your gaps, make Najee Harris, not be able to have lanes to cut back into. And you got in coverage, make Mac Jones just take that extra second when you drop back into coverage. So you got to be sound. You got to, just know what you're doing. I trust Pete Warner. He's a hell of a linebacker. And I think he's the guy this week.
Yeah. That's who I picked against Clemson. And I mean, I agree a lot with that. I mean, Pete's the man in the linebacking crew. I love Pete.
Do you remember when he was a freshman on special teams and you're like, this kid's going to give himself a concussion one of these days? Like he was like a bullet. Like he ran down there so fast and he'd hit those guys so hard on those kickoff returns.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's no reason. I have seen nothing to believe that this is not the last game for all 4 of these linebackers in Ohio State uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Pete is you consider Tough the quarterback of the linebackers, but I think Pete's the heart and soul of the linebackers, and he just needs to play his game, and I think they're fine there. My guy is going to end up being Sean, and the reason why I'm picking Sean, and I've picked the safeties a lot this year. I've picked Pete. All these guys need to show up at different things. The defensive line needs to do everything they can to try to be the defense line they were against Clemson. Sean needs to play press coverage against Devontae Smith. And we just said Devontae Smith's going to get points. He is going to get points. Don't let the kid feast.
Yeah.
And if you want to be one of the best corners in the NFL, you got to do this stuff. So
got to go up for the challenge. And like you said, Sean, it's time to go earn that paycheck.
Yeah. So what are you thinking score wise?
All right. Well, I had a score in my head for the longest time. And then I thought of another one that kind of went in line with what I said with the whole Vince Young thing, but I'm going to go back to my original score. So I'm not going to say that other one because in case, it's the score you're going to say. Ohio State in the 2014 year, 42 was their magic number. Now this year they've hit 52 a couple of times. They hit 49 a couple of times. So I think one of those is their magic number. I think Alabama's better than Clemson, but I think we can end up doing to them what we did to Clemson. It's a tall task. I know their line is a lot bigger, a lot better than Clemson's line, but I think we can have success there. Like I said, these guys, they want it. They've worked with Larry Johnson for years. Jonathan Cooper, that guy's he's going to leave it all out on the field. Baron Browning's going to leave it all out on the field. They're might get Zach Harrison back. So I'm saying 49-35.
I like the score, and I'm almost there. I agree with you on the 35. I think that we will go back and forth early with a couple touchdowns, similar to last week's game. I don't think we're going to be going into halftime 35-14. I could see us going.
Feel good if we do, though, right?
Yeah, I could see us going into halftime 24-14. Something like that, maybe 21-14. But I think we're going to get into a position. I think we'll get in the position in the first half that Alabama will be the team chasing the scoreboard, because I have this feeling that Ohio State will get up on them eventually. They're going to trade a couple touchdowns, and then Ohio State will start establishing, their offensive game plan. It's going to be a lot of running. It's going to be a lot of, forcing Alabama to keep your secondary back. And my score is 45-35. I think that is what I've been thinking about ever since the national championship, or ever since the semifinal game, that I think that they are the ones that are going to end up chasing the scoreboard. I don't think Alabama has really been challenged this year. I think there's a lot more challenges Ohio State has faced. And I think that, they had to get, Alabama has ran over the SEC now for how many years, and people can have their arguments. Well, other teams have come out, blah, blah, blah. Alabama has been the dominant SEC team since Urban Meyer has left. And even then, that was, they were the same team, just on separate sides. I mean, he's won how many national titles, and I think this is just a different challenge. And I know Nick Saban respects Ohio State. Still don't know how much it's hard for these kids that are going to be told that, from everybody, and you're hearing it, oh, you're not going to lose to Ohio State, and now their quarterback's banged up, and they're going to have players out, and maybe their top defensive tackle or top defensive end or whoever, that guy might be out, this guy might be out. I mean, they might not. I mean, we've heard everything from one or two guys on the defense line that nobody on the defensive line's playing, and so and I just think they're going to have the mindset that, we're going to beat this team, and they've never been challenged. And this is going to be their biggest challenge of the year for Alabama. And I think Nick Saban knows it, because he knew it in 2014. And I don't think they respected the team. I don't think deep down the team respected him. And I don't know if he's going to be able to, none of those kids, maybe freshmen, none of those kids would have been there, right? I mean,
what, in 2014?
Yeah,
no, that's a whole. None of these guys. I mean, I'm thinking Justin Hilliard. None of these guys were there for that first.
Yeah,
matchup.
So it's that. I mean, it's just a mindset, and that mindset in the South. Even though Ohio State has recruited just as well as Alabama and Clemson over this whole stretch, and has recruited better than every other SEC program in this whole stretch, with maybe the exception of Georgia.
Yeah.
And LSU's had a couple big years in there, but overall, since Urban and now Ryan Day, they have out-recruited a lot of these teams. Like, I know what these kids, I mean, these are kids that Nick Saban has tried to get to, and he gets that, and we're not slow, we're not small. We have 5 stars, 4 stars all over the field, just like they do. And people I don't know where this whole, they're going to get blown out mindset is coming from. Because I get North doesn't win the national title a lot, but Ohio State's been there a lot, and they've won it 2 times in the last 20 years. Yeah. And I get that doesn't compare to, 5 or 6, whatever Saban has. 5 at Alabama, 6 total. Yeah, but that's still that's one guy.
That's one guy. That's one program. We can play football in the North. We can match up with these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This team is built Ohio State would compete in the SEC. That's their fan bases don't want to ever admit to that, but it's true. If you put Ohio State in the SEC East, I hate to break it to you, we would have more Alabama, Ohio State SEC championship games than we would have Alabama, Georgia SEC now.
Oh, absolutely.
And
not to get too far off topic, because I know we're trying to sign off here in a second, but did you ever, have you looked at Ohio State's, what their average offensive yards per game is?
Not lately, but
it's 544. Yeah. It's a little bit better than Alabama's. That's something that, those extra games could have shifted that in either way. So I'm not getting at that. But have you ever looked? Do you know what the breakdown is between running and pass? 272 running, 272 passing. How are you going to stop a team that is completely balanced?
Yeah, exactly.
Where like you can't go into the game like we're going, this team's one dimensional, stop their pass and they're done. Like Ohio State does everything well. Like people really, you got to stop being afraid. I mean, anything could happen.
Yeah.
The worst,
Alabama's good enough.
Bad turns could happen. You could have turnovers.
Alabama could be easily the team that wins 45-35, but this is not going to be
at least, I mean, you wouldn't think so, but anything can happen in football. I mean, we just beat Clemson. Everyone thought that was going to be like a 3-point game. We beat Clemson by 21 points. So anything can happen with momentum. There's nothing to be scared about going into this game. We can match up with these guys. I think we can make them one-dimensional much easier than they can make us one-dimensional. And that's going to turn into turnover, stops, whatever it may be. And I think we can win easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think we will win. Like I said, I think we're the team of destiny. There's just everything that's went up against them this year, and they are just conquering it. And
so you don't think it's a last second score by Ohio State? You think Ohio State has the lead, keeps the lead throughout the second half?
I think they take the lead. Now it's similar to the 2014 game, but I mean, once we took the lead in the second half, we didn't give it up.
Right.
And we were the team of the momentum in the second quarter.
So you're saying Baron Browning's going to get a pick six in this game?
I don't know. If one of the defensive ends or a linebacker, whoever gets a pick six, then I mean, I will probably be running around here screaming my head off. But no, I think once we get up on them, that they're the ones who are going to be chasing the scoreboard, just like they were in 2014. And, so that's just my thought process. I feel really confident about it right now. I mean, it's not a sure thing. There's still, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm 80-20. We're winning the title. I think I'm probably 65-35. I mean, Alabama's really, really good, but I'm really confident. I like how they're we're just being disrespected.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get on out of here.
One more game, guys. Let's bring it home. National champions. We can only hope, but I think they are going to win it. Thank you all for this season. Started off crazy. We didn't even have football, how long ago. And I'm glad we got the season we did. And just, I'm not going to say national title game's a cherry on top because you always want to win the whole thing. That's always the mindset. That's what makes Ohio State great. That's the mindset is, it's a national title or bust. It's not, you miss the playoffs, you lose in the national title game. The season is a failure. And I don't care what anyone says. Of course, it's great that we got the football we did this year, but let's win one more. We can do this.
Yeah.
Beat Alabama. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, watching us, stopping by at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
I'm Mike.
OH.
Go Buckeyes.
Go Buckeyes.
Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.